So the C.N.E is on again for another year. I thought I'd pull some of my stuff out of storage and show you all here some mementos of the C.N.E that I've collected over the years. Now there's this one, which is a souvenir book from around 1915. On the cover we can see that there's the old manufacturer's building and the famous Gooderham fountain, which no longer exists, since replaced by the Princess Margaret fountain. Let's have a look inside. One of the first things I noticed is that it's published by Valentine & Sons Publishing Company Limited. Here, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. So that tells us that it's sometime after 1912, because by then is when they had expanded their full-service offices to Winnipeg and Vancouver. So we know at least it's after 1912 by even the first page. Valentine & Sons created a lot of postcards and mementos, starting off in Dundee, Scotland, back in 1825. One of the first views we see here is a illustrated bird's eye view of the grounds. And then we see the manufacturer's building there again, the women's building, horticultural building, and the grandstand, and a few other various buildings around the top. A nice summary of the C.N.E and how they're a national asset. First photographic view that we see is the administration building, which still exists today. This thing was built in 1905 and was the first of 15 buildings designed by George Wallace Goodenough at the C.N.E. A few of them still remain today. This building is one of the ones still remaining. It eventually changed to the press building, and it still houses the press today. Another Goodenough building is the old grandstand. This one was built in 1907 to replace an earlier version, and it was fireproof in nature, just like all of the other Goodenough buildings, but eventually this one too would burn down. 1946, this one was lost to fire. Here's a couple of the exhibitors that were there at the C.N.E back then, Jagger and Castles. This view's a little familiar because it's the same view as what we saw on the cover of the book, except not illustrated here. Here it's the actual photograph of the same scene. You have the manufacturer's building and the Gooderham fountain. Manufacturer's building was built in 1903, another Goodenough design. Unfortunately, it too burned by 1961. And the Gooderham fountain lasted from about 1911 until 1958, when it was replaced by the Princess Margaret fountain. An early morning scene around the same place near the Gooderham fountain. And one of the older buildings featured in this building in this book is the machinery hall. This one was built around 1899, and it was built along the north side of the C.N.E, very close to the railway. It was kind of a science center of its day, showcasing all the new technology of harvesting and all the new machinery that was being developed. Unfortunately, it had to go when the Gardiner Expressway came through. It was demolished between 1959 and 1960. This is the art gallery, which was a staple feature for many years. This original building here was built in 1902 and then got very popular, so they built a second building over here in 1905. Later on, this became the Graphic Arts and Photography building, and eventually it was demolished to make way for the Queen Elizabeth building that still stands there today. Here's a view you wouldn't quite see today since the shoreline's been expanded, but the terrace on the lakefront. You can see a lot of ships going by here during the C.N.E. Here's another view of the grandstand. Everyone getting ready for some shows. a big band concert at one of their gazebos. And here's the manufacturer's building again, just showing a general scene, very patriotic here. One empire, one flag, one king. Here's another view, looking towards the horticultural building from the grandstand. A great scene on the midway. Everybody in hats and suits and gowns. Oh, now this one I'm going to have to expand a little bit. The feature of this book is that it has a nice big fold-out centerfold view of the grandstand. Across here. Looks like maybe a little bit of horse racing, or yeah. All the guys here have numbers on their back. Must have been having a bit of a race or a judging contest, and that was their entry number. As you fold this one back up again, there's some pictures on the back, including the press building that we saw earlier. Well, it says Press Bureau. And another scene on the Grand Plaza. It seemed to be a very popular place to take the shot over again. And what else we got? Fold this in. Oh, this is the old Dominion and Provincial Government building, which is now home to medieval times. Oh, maybe I should say a little bit about this one. Yeah, eventually they would construct another building just south of this for the government's building that's today the Liberty Grand Building. Another view from the terrace, right on the lake from the C.N.E. And the manufacturer's building again with the additional women's building. Now the women's building was added in 1908. Unfortunately, both of these came down in 1961 when they too succumbed to flames and burned the structures down. Now we got some more, let's see here. More vendors. The Auto Tire Company. And another interesting vendor is Dean's. And Dean, under the grandstand, are showing off their boats and their pleasure craft. They were very popular along the Humber River, and then eventually they would open up a big shop in Sunnyside that would eventually become the Palais Royal Dance Hall, which is still existing there today. And there's also the Railways building. This still exists today, but not after a lot of turmoil. It burned down in 1987, but the walls are still remaining. And a lot of people rallied together, including Sam Snyderman, Sam the Record Man, to raise funds to have it restored. And it came back. And ever since then, it's been used for multiple uses as a showcase area during the C.N.E. And here's another company called Brunswick Bulky Colander Company of Canada. You can see they make billiard tables, pool tables, and I know later on they started making gramophones, and the factory still exists today in Liberty Village, and it's now condos. Now, of course, Valentine had to showcase a photo of their stand at the C.N.E. Here's Valentine's series of postcards, and they would also sell books like this at this stand to people going to the C.N.E. to have a memento of the day. You can see in behind there, there's a dairy building, probably exhibiting a lot of the innovations in dairy technology and cows at the time. Now here's an interesting ride. It's called the Royal Ascot. It was built in 1912 and lasted until 1919, but this roller coaster actually was a double roller coaster. It would send two coasters at the same time, and you basically were racing each other, so whoever reached the end first won. So I guess technically you could place bets on this ride if you wanted to, so maybe that's why it didn't last very long. Here's another general scene of horse judging, general scene of cattle being judged. A couple more vendors. Morrison's Brass Manufacturing Company, and Parker Die Works. They're around for a lot of years in Toronto, very popular company. And then here's the Transportation Building. Now this was built in 1909 and eventually became the International Building, but it too was lost to fire back in 1974. Here's another famous roller coaster from the C.N.E, long before the Flyer existed. The Great Roller Bowler Coaster. It looks like you twirl around in a circle on it, so I guess that's how it got its name, the Roller Bowler. And the Agricultural Building, also the Horticultural Building. It still exists today. And let's see what happened to this one. Oh, it was built in 1907. And it replaced the Crystal Palace that used to be on the same location. And it's still around today as the Toronto Event Centre, formerly Music. Another roller bowler ride, but this one's roller bowler chutes. You just shoot the chutes and end up in the water at the bottom. And the Royal Gorge on the Midway. And most nights at the C.N.E were ended with fireworks to send off the evening with a bang. And it also sends off this book too, because that's the end. So there you go. The C.N.E as it was circa 1915. I hope you enjoyed having this look back, and I hope to record a few more of these during the duration of the C.N.E. Take it easy. Have a good day.